Welcome back, everybody, to Recruiters with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. I'm here with my sidekick and co-host, John Raffini. What is up, Johnny?
I missed hearing that intro music. It's good to be back.
Brother, 3 weeks. We've been so busy, but now we are finally back. And guess who we have in the house? Miss Victoria Hill from the Advanced Group. Victoria, what's going on?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Quite welcome. And Johnny, I don't know if you know, but I met Victoria at the Midwest Staffing Conference about, 2.5, 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
Excellent.
Tell you what, was that a blast or what?
It was a blast. I'm so glad we met there. I met so many great people, but the shark, oh my goodness.
What else would you expect?
Did you get a picture with them? Maybe an autograph?
I didn't get a picture with you, Shark. Why is that?
I don't know what happened. Next time for sure.
Next time for sure.
Those conferences, though, are awesome because of just what you just described. You meet so many good people that you may never have met otherwise. So I love the fact that a lot of these conferences are getting back to in-person meetings, and you're able to interact with folks and talk and meet new people. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good stuff. So Victoria, tell us a bit about yourself. What's going on with yourself and the Advanced Group?
Okay, great. Well, I am the Director of Diversity and Social Impact for Advanced Group. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Advanced Group. We are a staffing organization. We place permanent contingent workers. We also have a clinical research organization. So we're doing a lot, globally as well. And so I lead the diversity, equity, and inclusion, also social impact for the entire organization. And so what that means essentially is that I'm all things DE&I. Inside our organization as well as external. So I get to do fun things like this podcast being one, training, developing, bringing awareness, being out in the communities, and just showing why inclusivity is important. So I have a great job, actually.
It sounds like you enjoy it.
Heck
I
yeah.
do. I do.
So was this a role that existed before you assumed it within your company, or are you the first one?
I am the first one. I'm happy to say I'm the first one. So that comes with excitement as well as challenges.
Well, you kind of have a blank canvas, right?
I do. Yeah, I do. And, and I love that they allow me to expand this role. I don't want to say as I see fit, because there are some things, that I can't do or can do, but I did start in 2018. That's when I started a DE&I committee within our organization, but I was in the HR space. So I was doing HR, employee relations, all that fun stuff, as well as starting a DE&I committee. So it was a part of my HR role. And so last year, this role became full-time. So
wow.
Yes. So all I focus on is DE&I.
I love the fact that they expanded and created that role. And I've got to think it was based on a lot of initiative that yourself and other people started putting forward to put some emphasis on the topic.
Yes, we've never done it before. It was new. There were some failures, and I'll share that with the audience so that if anyone's starting their DE&I committee and strategy, I'll talk about things that I failed at, and I'll talk about everything I obviously excelled at, just because I want people to be successful in their planning.
Awesome.
That's great stuff. Hey, John, Victoria, tell us what big award you just got.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
come on.
Yes. Well, thank you. I didn't set this question up, but the Staffing Industry Analysts, SIA, as they're known, they just nominated, and I was awarded a 2022 DEI Influencers Award.
Man.
That's outstanding.
Yes.
Kudos to you.
Thank you. That is great. You said, what did I do? I didn't hear if you had. Oh.
No.
We were just celebrating.
We were just celebrating. We were giving you applause.
Thank you.
Victoria, do me a favor for our listening audience, because DE&I, unfortunately, is still an area that a lot of people are still very ignorant to. They don't really understand it. And diversity is different from equity, which is different from inclusion. Could you break that down for us on what each component means and why it's so important that companies include all three?
Sure. Simply put, I think diversity is about representation. And so, and it's a lot of things. A lot of times when people ask me, Victoria, what is diversity? Is it gender and race? It's so much more than gender and race. It's diversity of thought. It's socioeconomic, it's age, it's marital status, it's military status. There's so much in this realm of diversity. And so I like to just say, we just want everyone in and no one out. So a diverse world would be everyone thriving in that diverse world. Everyone, different thoughts, different races, different colors, ethnicities, anything, your background, anything that's diverse or different than someone else should be in this life.
And the mindset is you get all of that in the same room, so to speak, and you're just expanding the points of view to help bring that to light and potentially consider options and paths that might not ever come to light because everybody gets tunnel visioned in the same line of thought, right?
Exactly. It's really about us expanding our stories. So understanding other people's stories or lives or backgrounds. Once we understand, we can start including. So that's the diversity piece, like bringing all that to the table. The second thing you asked was equity. So equity and equality, people interchange those words, but they're not the same at all. So the equity piece is, and I like to put it in simple terms, is giving people what they need. And so if you think about, I'll give an example, there's so many pictures out there on the internet, but I may need some different things to make me successful in my career than maybe you, John, or maybe you, Richard, or the next person. I may need a little bit more so that I could be successful. I may need a mentor. I may need a sponsor. I may need to go back to school to gain some, different type of education. So I may need that to be successful. The next person may not need that. So equity is all about giving someone what they need to be successful. Equality is giving everybody the same thing. And we know that that doesn't work, right? So equity is the goal that we're shooting for. Give people what they need to be successful. And then the third piece is the inclusion, which is making sure people feel like they belong. And I love to give this example. Me and my husband have karaoke parties all the time. So Shark, that's why I wanted you to sing.
Richard.
That's why I wanted you to sing earlier.
Oh, whatever.
And so the inclusion piece is, if I invite you to my house, if we're having a karaoke party, I want to clean my house first so that when you come in, you can just come in and feel comfortable, sit down, eat some hot dogs, and just enjoy being at the party. I don't want you to come and have to clean up or put some dishes in the dishwasher. I want you to come and feel like you're part of the party and that you belong there and that I was expecting you to come. That's really how I describe inclusion. Just making people feel comfortable, like they belong. But all those pieces are probably equally as important.
Man, good stuff.
That just shed a lot of light because myself included, it's like you're always trying to learn on this topic because it's very important. And a lot of people will only assume, oh, well, diversity means, to your point, it's either race or gender. And how you define that was so eloquent and explained it very well in the sense that, no, it's not just that. It's pulling in folks from all over the spectrum to get that diverse thought process and that diverse decision-making process going. So that makes a whole lot of sense. I think a lot of people don't understand it that way, and not for any reason, but just because of lack of knowledge.
So true. Victoria, I got to ask you, so how do you get people to change? We know that's the hardest thing. How do you get that through their head?
That is the question of the day.
Oh boy.
So I often tell people, you don't have to change your beliefs, right, in order to embrace this DEI concept. You don't have to change your beliefs. And I'll give you an example, a real life example. So, I have certain beliefs. I'm a Christian. And so we have people in our organization who are all faiths, right? And so I celebrate everyone. Whatever's important to anyone, I celebrate with them side by side. I'm excited. And I do have to lead by example. So what I do is I make sure I highlight, for instance, Ramadan was recent. I highlighted one of our employees. We did like a question answer and we put it out there on LinkedIn. And she just answered questions about what she does during Ramadan. Now, did that change my belief? No, it did not change my belief as a Christian, but what it did was expanded my story. And now I know what's happening in the Muslim community where I didn't know before that.
Right.
And so
is that part of the inclusive atmosphere?
that's part of the inclusive atmosphere. And I try to tell people, if you just want to learn just a little bit more, be a little bit curious about someone else's experience, that can help change minds. But I don't want to change your beliefs. I just want you to be more inclusive. And so that's different. And I think what scares people off is that they think, well, I have to change my beliefs. I have to believe what you believe. No, you don't have to believe what I believe. But what you have to do is respect and start including. And so I think people can get on board with that a little bit more than if they're thinking, I want to think this way and you're going to change it. No. I just want you to expand that thinking.
Do you think it's a challenge? And I'm going to throw this out there, and anybody listening might, I don't know, this might be a little, Richard, I might be stepping on some shaky waters here. So
good.
I agree with everything you just said. Do you think some people are hesitant because of societal pressures now where they feel like, well, if I don't share the same opinion, you're going to be mad at me. Mm-hmm. And we're so we're divisive as a society right now, where everybody thinks that everybody should think the same way. And yet internally within organizations, we're trying to foster the complete opposite. Do you ever fight those battles?
Yes, I do. Every day.
Okay.
Here we go.
But one thing that our organization does is we have something called culture conversations that we host. We just hosted one yesterday, actually. We host it every quarter. And what we do is we open it up to the entire organization. It's not mandatory. And people can come in and share their thoughts and opinions. And so yesterday's conversation was actually about microaggressions. And we've had several over the last 2 years. But what that does, John, is to really make sure we can hear all opinions. And when we start those conversations, I always say, I want to hear all voices. I don't want to hear just one side. I want to hear all voices. All voices are welcome. This is a safe space. So if you don't think like I think, if you don't think like someone else thinks, it's perfectly fine. We want to hear those opinions. But to your point, John, yes, people will think, I'm not going to say anything because it may go against the grain. We fight with that. And so that's why I always try to, first of all, lead by example. And so I make sure that everyone knows that you can say anything to me respectfully. I have to say that respectfully.
No, that's the key word. You're right. It is. Exactly. It has to be said with respect. Correct.
With respect. As long as you listen to others. And that's all that, we really just listen, like let it be a safe space and let everyone. But to your point, social media, we're so divisive right now. And so people think, well, if I say this side or that side, my bosses are listening, my employees are listening, you know what I mean? So I'm just not going to say anything. And that is a struggle that we're constantly on this journey. We're constantly trying to combat so that everyone can feel safe and heard. And I think that having these conversations over and over every quarter, year over year, we'll get there. Are we 100% there? No, not at all.
It sounds like you've got the backing. You mentioned afraid of what your boss might think if you say something. Mm-hmm. I've got to think that you've got the backing and support of executive leadership.
Yes.
Because without that, you really can't do this.
Correct. Right. We definitely have buy-in. And that's something that, companies who are just starting their DEI strategy, you have to get that buy-in from the top. And what I always tell people is to get that buy-in, you need to speak their language, right? Everybody has their own language that they speak. And so executives, they speak bottom line, right? They're going to speak bottom line. They want to know about dollars and cents, but they also want to know about engagement of their staff. Mm-hmm. They want to know about productivity. So when you're creating this plan, this strategy, you have to speak people's languages, and executives speak languages, managers, your peers, everyone has a different language they speak. And so you need to dig into finding out, what is that language? What language does the shark speak, or what language does John speak? And then show them data that speaks to that language. If you're speaking a different language, and by language, I don't mean language like the English language, but you know what I mean, like language.
Body language.
If once you speak their language, that's when they'll listen to you. If you're speaking engagement and engagement's not important to them, they may not listen. But if you're speaking, staff productivity or metrics, and that's something important to them, now they'll listen to you.
So it's not unlike anything else in the world where you've got to know what's in it for them. They've got to see the value as it relates to them in order for them to get behind it for the rest of the company.
Yes.
Makes total sense.
It's great. And John, you know what Victoria does so well? You break it down so simple. I'm learning so much right now. You're going from the bottom up and making it so simplified for people where, I'm not gonna lie, almost everybody needs to buy in. I mean, you're making it so nice and easy to understand.
Yeah, and I want to, because, everyone's on a different, I call it the journey. We all call it the journey. Everybody's on a different part of this DE&I journey. So it's just like getting to work. Now I'm in a Zoom environment, but everyone who goes into an office, they take different routes, but they all get there eventually, and they all get there with the same goal in mind. And so that's what I think about DE&I. I want to make it simple, like when I do trainings, because some people are far advanced or further along in their journey, and other people aren't. And so, when I talk to companies, I always say, don't compare yourself to someone else on this journey. Like my company may be, in the middle of the journey. Your company may be further ahead or further behind. Don't compare yourself to my journey. Just start working within your organization to make sure it makes sense, because everybody will get there. It's a journey. There's no stop signs. You just keep going along on this journey.
So what are some of the challenges when you're just starting on that journey? If you're an organization, because obviously you should have an idea of where you want to end up so that you can move in motion toward it. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Yeah, so that's the part where I was going to talk about failure,
right? Hey, let's face it, that's the only way we grow and learn, is by making mistakes and failing. So that's cool.
It is, and I think one thing that I definitely want to share is, don't start too large. You have to have goals, of course, but don't start with like 20 goals. And that's something that I did. I thought we could do like all these 20 different things, and I'm excited, and let's get it done. And you can't, because if the list is too long, you just won't do anything. If you're like me, like maybe other people can get 20 things done in 6 months.
The list is so long, you end up getting paralyzed.
You get paralyzed. Exactly. Choose one or two things that you're going to start. And once you are successful at that one thing or that number two thing, then you'll be motivated to keep going. But if you have 20 things, like I did, you get paralyzed, and then you say, you know what, I'm done. I can't do this, because you're not accomplishing anything. So choose one or two things. You can start with, like we started with, creating a mission statement for DE&I that aligns with your mission statement for the entire organization. It has to align. DE&I is part of your mission as a company. So create a separate one, or create a logo, but start small, baby steps. If you're just starting out, don't start too large, or you potentially could fail. And I don't
That's everything in life.
True.
Yes.
What were some of the big aha moments on your journey so far where you felt like you were really making progress?
One thing I can think of that I'm very proud of,
despite it, not including being on this program.
That's
of course.
Program.
The big debut.
Yes, meeting you all. This was like the highlight. Yeah. So one thing, we started, back in 2018, like I was telling you, and we started with some unconscious bias training that we brought into the organization. And, my aha moment in that was that it was probably too heavy to start right there. With just like, boom, unconscious bias. You have unconscious bias, now do something about it. So I rebranded the training and brought it in-house and created a conscious inclusion training, which Shark, that's what I was teaching on at the conference. And just
it's a much more positive spin on it.
It's a more positive spin on it. And I talk about moving from unconscious bias that we all have. So we don't have to stay there for 3-hour training and talk about unconscious bias and pound that in people's head. We know we have unconscious bias, every single person born on this earth. But talking about moving from unconscious bias to conscious bias, bringing it to your awareness, and then start actively doing something. And so my aha moment was that you have to change some things to make it a more positive spin, like you said, John. And then the success story is now we have it as part of our new hires onboarding journey. So our new hires come in, they have a 90-day journey that includes, different things with onboarding. And then part of that is this conscious inclusion training, so that everyone knows, like right off the bat, coming into the organization, that this is what we believe. We believe as an organization that we should be more consciously inclusive. And so that was a win for me because, as you all probably know, trainings that are mandatory are not well received all the time. And it's hard to move a training from voluntary to that mandatory, which I hate the term mandatory, but move it to that category. But we did with executive support 100%. So that was an aha moment as well as a success story. And so we've done several things, over the last years. But what I'm happy to say is that we've started the conversation. And so, now employees are saying, yes, we know about DE&I. 2 years ago, less people knew that we were doing anything in our organization. So year over year, more people are saying, yeah, this is ingrained in our culture. And that makes me feel good.
Absolutely. And that's got to make the people of the company feel good too. And I'm very impressed, and kudos to you for, we said, put a positive spin on it. Sometimes that rebranding, because you're right. When someone goes in, okay, we're all going to have consciously biased training. And you go in there and you say, all right, well, you're going to tell me now that I'm a bad person and I'm thinking the wrong way, versus, hey, we're going to talk about conscious inclusion and how we can all become better. What a brilliant way to position that. And I would assume your audience has less of a defense wall starting out than they would otherwise, which is great.
And that is feedback that we received. So, as the feedback came in from unconscious bias, it's like, oh, yeah, because people did feel like you're pointing the finger at me and you're telling me I'm doing something wrong and I need to change. Right. And this conscious inclusion is like, no, we all have unconscious bias. I'm not pointing a finger at anyone because I have unconscious bias. So what we need to do as a collective is to now, let's just start being more inclusive. That's it. Let's figure out ways to work through it together.
That's outstanding.
Tell you what, this is outstanding stuff here. I tell you what, Victoria, I got to ask you one more question here. So like everybody's buying in. Give us a story of like somebody that said, wow, they came to you and said, I am just overwhelmed on what I'm learning, and it's maybe changing their life, I want to say.
Yeah, I just got an email yesterday. So where somebody did, and they CC'd my leader. So I'm happy about that. Thank you. But, and there's been several examples, but of someone who said, I know this work is challenging, and I'm just so happy that you're bringing it to our organization. And now it's enlightening the staff, because people are learning things that they wouldn't normally learn. You go to work, you focus on your 9-to-5 job, whatever those hours are. You focus on that and you go home, and then you go back to social media and TV and your family and whatever else you do in your personal life. And you don't get to express those feelings. But those feelings that you have about anything are still going to show up at work. And so we need to discuss it, right? We spend more time at work than we do anywhere. And so it'll come out. So companies who aren't talking about these issues or opportunities, you need to start, because it's going to show up in your employees one way or the other, good or bad. And a lot of times it could be bad. And so you want to have these conversations. So anyway, the email was there. I loved it because it just made me happy about the work that I do, that they're like, I'm glad you're bringing us to our organization. So, and we're having these conversations and we're able to like let our hair down, so to speak, so that we can work better.
That's awesome. Do you see more energy in the office now, like a little pep in her step since you came in?
Yeah, we're on Zoom. So I'd say a pep in our Zoom step.
Are you guys 100% remote?
We are. We are. We do have offices and people can come in for collaboration meetings, but it's not mandatory. So we are mostly on Zoom, and we're global. So we, Zoom and Teams, that's how we communicate. But definitely, like a few weeks ago, I did a training on neurodiversity, and that just made people feel really great because they feel like they're safe and they're heard, and they're able to say, I have social anxiety, or I may not want to be on a Zoom cameras on all the time. And they were able to just express their feelings, and we were able to listen and learn. And that was it.
So you stepped into this role and it was new for you, something you were clearly passionate about, but the role itself now I'm leading this charge.
Yes.
Were there people that you leaned on as mentors to say, hey, you've done this, help me figure it out?
I have, and I can share names, but I probably won't because I don't want to leave anybody out. So, but yes, I do have a mentor who is great, who's been doing this work before me. So I've leaned on mentors. I've asked people to please mentor me and share with me and pour into me. I've used Google a lot. I've sat in a lot of trainings over the years to hear and gain perspectives. And one thing that I did and I love to do is raise my hand. And so I always want to be involved. If someone says like neurodiversity training, if you asked me about that 3 years ago, I would say, no way, I don't know anything about it. But I research and I create content and I do it. I just make myself learn. I educate myself so that I can teach others. So so mentors, sponsors. My leader is wonderful. We have excellent leaders in the organization who support me.
Nice.
So, yes.
That's outstanding.
That help. Yes.
Tell you what, Victoria, you're doing incredible stuff. Johnny, any final thoughts, man? I'm just sucking it all in, man.
I commend you again. Richard said it best. You break this down in such a digestible way that others in your field are unable to do. And I think that's what loses people sometimes. So thank you for having that talent and for sharing it with us today. She said a bunch of things. I'm always taking notes. She said a bunch of things that I took down. The two that resonated that I'm going to take with me is if you're doing this with your organization, start small. Don't have too many goals. And whoever your audience is, speak their language. And you'll have a lot more success if you do that than if you try to jam an agenda down their throat. So that's what I'll take away.
Good stuff. And Victoria, before we go, where can everybody reach you at? I know you're on LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Victoria Hill at Advanced Group. Search for me, follow me, reach out to me. And should I leave my email? I don't know.
We'll put that down in the comments, but I tell you what, yes. All I can say is you're going to learn from Victoria. So I'm going to sum this up, Johnny and Victoria. Here it is. Adapt, listen, and love. That's what it's all about.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Victoria, thank you so much for coming on. You're now a local celebrity, maybe nationwide celebrity. So we will definitely have you back sometime soon because I want to learn more, John. I mean, I'm just taking this all in, and you're a great mentor for everybody out there. So thank you again for coming on the show. And everybody out there, we are back next week. We're going to be back at the same time, same place. Have a great week. And remember, it's real hot out there in the north, so stay inside.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Continued success to you.
Thank you. Bye.